Hey guys, welcome back. My name's Dawn. I garden in Zone 8B. And today we're here to talk about 5 lesser known beautiful perennials that can tolerate the Texas heat. So I want to show you some very tough plants, and I'm not sure why they're not talked about more. And I'm not sure why I don't see them more at the stores, but you definitely need to keep an eye out for them because they have been in my garden and stand the test of time. They've been over probably 10 years, and through the Texas heat, they make it without looking burnt, crispy, needing water. They flower, or they're just beautiful foliage that will give you the color like a flower would. So I hope you'll stay tuned. We'll go through these, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button. I love having you here. So I hope you'll like this video and become part of this community. All right, stay tuned. And we all know Texas heat is so different from heat in other areas. And if you don't know why, it's because our evenings stay warm. So the difference is they may get 3-digit temperatures, but their temperatures also drop during the evening. So although they may get up to 102 for the day, they may get down to 80, 78, 75 for the night. So here in the late summer in Texas, our evenings don't cool off. And so we will often have 90-degree temperatures through the evening times. So that is the difference between Texas heat and heat in other areas where our plants will struggle more because they don't get that rest. They don't get to go to sleep at night and then wake up the next morning feeling all refreshed. They were still struggling to make it through the night. Also, every plant I talk about today, I'm going to use the common name. I rarely do scientific names. They're just not my thing. I can hardly pronounce the common names, so why would I make it more complicated? So if you want the scientific name, just look it up, but I will go ahead and post the common names that I typically use in my garden. Okay, the first one I want to highlight is called Lesser Calamament. You can see it back here. And this has been in my garden for going on probably 10 to 15 years. And it is one of my true favorites. I have a lot of favorites, I really do, but this is truly one of my favorites. And one of the reasons is it attracts so many pollinators. It is constantly covered in bees
and butterflies
throughout the season. And it is just very whimsical and graceful. And so it adds so much charm and movement to this part of the garden. It is actually full of pollinators as we speak. I'm not sure if I'll be able to catch them on camera, but the beauty just doesn't show up on the camera, and it makes it a little bit hard to share why this plant is special. But it's itty bitty little tiny flowers, and I really don't do anything for this plant. It is sitting under a huge Arizona cypress tree. And so any water that it gets is drip. I don't overhead water anymore, but I used to, and it was able to tolerate the overhead water. I'm trying to zoom in on one of the bees while I talk. Okay, back to water. I don't fertilize. I don't water it. I do cut it back because it can get leggy. You can see how leggy it is. I also think that's part of the charm, and I also think it's because where this one is located, it only gets morning sun, but this is a full sun plant, and it can tolerate full sun, full Texas sun. I have one on the side of my yard where it also gets heat from the bricks off the house, and it is doing just as beautifully. Nothing special is done to this plant. So for that reason, it is number 1 on my list as far as my favorite, not talked about, heat tolerant plants. All right, so let's move on to the second one that is rarely talked about. Okay, the second one I want to talk about is down here. This is Threadleaf or moonbeam Coropsis. And you can see, again, probably one of my favorite things about this plant is how enchanting is the word I would use to describe this plant. It's so fun. And again, the movement. And I think I'm obviously attracted to plants that offer movement and whimsy in the garden. And this one gets no water. As you can see, my drip here is turned off. I don't fertilize. Again, I do cut this one back just because in the winter it does leave yellow foliage that needs to be cut back. It's just not attractive. So in this early spring, I'll cut it back to the ground and it starts to fill out. Now, this particular plant where I have it right now is not getting enough sun. And so I probably do need to move it, but I'm also kind of just hanging on there thinking that I can hang on there. Does that make sense? I'm just, I don't know. When plants work in an area, I always hate to move them, even if they're long and leggy. It's okay. But this is probably my second favorite. I also love pops of yellow, especially bright yellow. This one is hidden behind my waterfall on the pool. And so I kind of like that. It's a little surprise as you come down my secret pathway here. It is popped here in the corner and you don't even know it's there until you're right on top of it. The moonbeam is not a reseeder. It is propagated by division. So I do not have to worry about it reseeding all over my garden. Keep in mind, I am talking about lesser known. So of course, we all have our favorite types of salvia. This expires is my favorite. Dianthus, all of those we know can tolerate the heat and will come back from year to year. But I'm talking about those lesser known, the ones that aren't talked about for some reason. So the third on my list is purple skullcap. And this has been here for probably 10 years. This is 2 plants, this entire area right here, 2 plants that gets that intense heat from morning till evening and that intense heat coming off of the brick of the house. And it continues to put on the prettiest little purple flower. And one of the main things I love about the purple skullcap is it is a mounding nature naturally. So I don't have to trim it. I don't have to worry about it looking messy so much just because of how it grows. Another pollinator magnet. The pollinators love these little purple flowers. And I particularly love this one, how it spills over the sidewalk. I love the charm and the softness that adds to this area. Purple skullcap is full sun, low water, and I do cut it back in the early spring because it will go back to woody stems. And so it's just, you want to cut it. You don't have to cut it back because it will grow back, but you'll start seeing more of those woody stems if you don't cut it back. So I like to just cut it in little round balls in the early spring and it comes back beautifully. And there is rarely a perennial that you don't have to cut back. If you have a lot of space and you can let your perennials go, you can do that. By not cutting them back, you're not going to have that fullness. And so that is what I like about this particular plant, is its fullness. So that's something to keep in mind with all perennials. You'll also get more performance when you cut them back. Each time you cut them back, they usually grow back more profusely, more full of blooms. They have that energy that they can just burst out because the roots have continued to develop underground. And so they're like fighting for growth up there on top of the ground. So, okay, so that is the third. Now, right behind it, if you can see this luscious greenery, is Mexican mint marigold. And it is a fall bloomer, but I love the foliage in the summer. It's upright, it's so green, it's so luscious, and I, again, don't have to do anything to it. And the flower is absolutely beautiful in the fall, and what's neat about it is when everything else is tired from the summer, the Mexican mint marigold comes alive. And so it's definitely high on my list, and it is an herb. It smells a bit like licorice though, so it's not my favorite, and I've never cooked with it. But I know some people, oh, it stinks. I just can't handle that. But anyways, I like it filling this space. So if you have a garden where you want seasonal color, you know, spring, summer, fall, and some winter interests, this will definitely give you that fall color you're looking for. So I love how the Mexican mint fills out the space above the purple skullcap. The purple skullcap will stay a lot lower than your typical salvia. And so that is what is unique about it, and actually what I love about it, because it's a nice underplanting for a lot of other plants, like this Mexican mint marigold. Like the others, I do cut this one back in early spring. It goes back to woody stems in the winter months. So it's not something you want to leave. You definitely just want to cut it back because you want that full growth. You can also give it a Texas chop in mid-July. So I need to get on that. It will help it stay full until the fall. If you don't, sometimes it can become a little bit extra leggy. I actually love it so much, I just bought some more for my garden in the front. I'd like to find a place to fill that in the front. I am trying to add more fall color, and that can be challenging other than mums and fall aster, which is what I have right now. Sometimes my drift roses will come back. And it's another one that the pollinators absolutely love. Just beautiful. Okay, and my fifth and final, which is right next to the other two that I just talked about. So we've got a beautiful little cluster. It's this Ptoriacana lily. And I think I don't have to say much to do this plant justice. What I love about it is the foliage and the texture. The only thing about calla lilies that I'm not a fan of is when the blooms are spent. I don't think they're very attractive. So if I have time, I'll pull off the spent blooms. But what I love is the flower spike for floral arrangements. Absolutely gorgeous. And just an eye catcher. They are stunning. The seed pods have all of this fluffy texture at the bottom and just spiky, spiky tips at the top, and the dark color. So in addition to the beautiful foliage, it does have this beautiful summer interest. So even if it's not blooming, I tend to leave the spikes, unless, of course, I'm making a floral arrangement, and then I'll cut them off and bring them inside. But it does spread, and a lot of people don't like them because of that. So I do have to dig this plant. Well, I don't dig the plant up entirely. I take it back. What I do is just take a shovel and chop off a lot of these bulbs, and I have gifted them to family and friends, but it's absolutely worth it. Don't do anything for this plant, no fertilizer. They do like water, but I would say moderate water. As much as they love water to look their best, they will also tolerate drought. They just won't give you these beautiful blooms, and the leaves probably would scorch, but they will survive and show up for you the following year. And they love full sun, so you have to give them the sun they need. But this particular variety, these leaves don't these leaves don't scorch. They will get you through summer and into fall until they're ready to go to sleep for the season. So all of these plants I talked about today are perennials. They're all true tested plants that have stood the test of time in my Texas garden, withstanding the heat, the hail, everything we have to deal with, the drought. And every year they come back looking stronger and more beautiful. And every year I can divide them and put them elsewhere if I have more space, but I don't anymore. So I do tend to give them away, and I highly recommend them. I'm not sure why they're not sold in stores. It's not something I don't see them typically in the stores. I know purple skullcap I sometimes see at nurseries that sell natives, and mint marigold I also see sometimes at nurseries that sell natives. And so I think that you have to get away from the big box stores to find these plants. I did find the Pretoria at a big box store. I think it was Lowe's. But the other plants were at a native nursery. And so you might need to just kind of branch out a little bit if you don't typically visit a nursery that sells natives. A few that I like are Shades of Green in Frisco, Texas. And in Denton, there's Painted Flower Farm. That's another wonderful nursery that sells natives. And I like them because you can call them ahead of time, buy your plant, and then just go pick it up. Grain Acres sells natives often. And let's see, I think there's Eco Bloom Nursery. That's another one that sells natives in this area. So that's just something that you'll want to think about if you want to add some different varieties that you don't typically see. So just a quick recap about the plants. All 5 of them prefer well-drained soil. They all like low water needs, and the canna lilies can actually handle a little more moisture in the soil than the rest of them. As far as planting them, you want to wait until early spring or maybe even in the fall. You want them to have plenty of time to get their roots established before our intense summer heat starts kicking in. So just because they are heat and drought tolerant doesn't mean this is a good time to plant them in the middle of the summer like this. Plants need time to get their roots established before they start performing with foliage or flowers. Also, as with most plants, just because they are heat and drought tolerant does not mean that you don't have to water them to get established. So that means once they're established, they're heat and drought tolerant. But to get these plants established, you do want to water them well, at least the first year. Make sure that you're giving them what they need to get adjusted to your climate and your soil. And keep an eye on them and make sure that you're not watering them too much and you're not watering them too little. So a little wilting might be good. It's a sign that they probably need water. And you definitely just want to make sure you don't overwater, which is a tendency, happens a lot in our summer months, that we tend to overwater our plants. We see them wilting and we automatically go and we drown them. Keep in mind, we have clay soils, and clay soils can hold that moisture, so they only need a touch of water. If you don't have well-drained soil, you can always add amendments to make it so that these plants will survive. So if your soils are very clay, very alkaline, like mine are, I tend to add a compost, expanded shell, gypsum. You can add lots of amendments to make your soil more compatible with these type of plants. The expanded shell is one of the best amendments for clay soils. If it's too expensive, not in your budget, you can also add pea gravel, but just make sure to stir in a lot of compost. Cottonwood compost is a good compost. Just regular compost works. Like everything, a little goes a long way. You don't want to add compost to your clay soils, because then you will have too much moisture. So it's all about balance. Just make sure that you are using the recommended amounts that are on your bag. I tend to use a landscaper's mix, expanded shell, pea gravel, and gypsum in my soils. I also sometimes add some aluminum sulfate or an organic soil acidifier to bring up that acidity. And these plants, most of them are native to Texas, so you don't have to worry about the acid requirements or the pH of your soil. So thank goodness, one less thing you have to be concerned with. Okay, that is it. I know that was short, but I hope it was short and sweet and offered a lot of great information. And if you have any comments or feedback, I would love to hear if you have some rather unknown hot loving plants that work in your garden. Please share them down in the comments. Let all of us other Texas gardeners know what's working in your yard. So again, if you found this video helpful, please hit that like button, subscribe, share, anything to help my channel grow. I'm trying to get now my new goals to 10,000 subscribers. I've got a long way to go, but I hope you can help me get there. So, all right, you guys have a great day, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.